So this is the when you were lucky to have dice panel, which there's a panel description, but the short version is we've been playing role-playing games for a very long time and have some fun stories about what that experience was like. When I signed up for this panel, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll fit right in. I'm the youngest person here by like a lot, so it's great. It's very refreshing, guys. It is fun to be able to talk to people who've been gaming nearly as long as I have been, and just like go, oh yeah, I remember. Look, this is the way it used to be, and like kind of laugh about that. And it's kind of fun that we have a panel to do that this time. So I'm into moderating. Let's go ahead and start out. I'm just going to ask some names, like a little bit of history about you and role-playing games. Just how long you've been playing, how young you are. I'll start out. I'm Eric Zawadzki. I'm 48, and I started role-playing between my 3rd and 4th grade years. I picked up a D&D book from my next door neighbor's older brother, who was a teenager and was not especially happy to be loaning his D&D books to a 4th grader, but did it anyway, and most of them came back in decent condition. So that was how it started for me. How about you?
I'm Bob Alberti. I am old enough to know better. Graduated in 1980 from high school. I started gaming as a freshman, so that would be 1976. So we were playing Dungeons and Dragons, AD&D in its first edition. In 1983, I started a computer game company which had a Dungeons and Dragons like multi-user game that you dialed into. There were 16 modems, and you'd dial in and play this game online, and that proved to be the world's first MMO, first commercial MMO. Because I was running this MMO, some of my players introduced me to Professor M.A.R. Barker, who had created the world's first game setting, which was Empire of the Petal Throne, published by TSR in 1975. And so I gamed with Professor Barker for 22 years in Tecumseh. Towards the end of his life, he set up the Tecumseh Foundation to manage his legacy after he passed, and I was a treasurer of the Tecumseh Foundation for about 10 years. I've gamed a bunch of different systems, a bunch of different things, and here I am today.
Don Kaiser. I started playing D&D a little older than Bob, but because I was in college when it came out. So I started playing D&D in 1976, and can I tell a funny story about how I got into it? Well, I actually heard about it when it first came out from a friend of mine. It was my sophomore year in college over at McAllister, but I didn't have a chance to play. I was working at a theme park outside of Chicago called Great America. And it was a glass floor, and I was sitting there, and one of the security guards came through, and I'm a complete a musical queen, I'll admit it, and he was singing musical songs as he came through the thing, and so we would get together for lunch, and share musical stories. It wasn't until the very end of the season, unfortunately, that I found out that he had a campaign, a D&D campaign. And so I didn't actually get a chance to play till December, but I know exactly when I started playing, December of 1976. So I have been playing since then. Like Bob, next to me, I started playing Tecumseh in 1977. I also played in the Professor's campaign, not for 22 years, but a number of years. I also Professor had a small gaming company called Tecumseh Games, which I was the CEO for a number of years, ran that for him. And then also, I was not on the foundation, but I did do most of as at the end of Professor's life, I was over visiting him at most Fridays and just talking about him. And I have some great stories about the Professor, which I'd like to share later. It's Tecumseh, if you're not familiar with it, it's pardon my French, fucking amazing. And I have one of my best friends who's out in California now is also a big Tecmo fan, so I know him. He develops video games, and he's worked with Joe Rowling, and D&D and things like that, and he will tell you in no uncertain terms that Tecmo is the richest fantasy world, bar none. Period, understatement. And Bob, I'm sure you can back me up on it.
Well, I would argue that it's not necessarily fantasy either. There's a lot of science fiction to it, which is part of its richness.
It is the biggest, best, most amazing, richest, in-depth world created.
Yeah.
It is bar none.
I'll give you an example. When I started playing the game, it's a theocracy. And one of the things they do is they start right off, they say, who do you worship? You have to worship somebody, one of the gods, you have to worship them. There's no atheists, no. Because if you say you're an atheist, a god will come down and slap you. And so everyone goes, well, I don't know, who's the god of soldiers, I guess? And everyone worships Vamukla, which is one of the 20 gods. So I thought, okay, I'll write a little guidebook of the 20 gods so that people playing the game can really quickly pick out who they want to worship. It took me 12 years, and it produced in 2 volumes. It was published in 2004, and if anyone knows Victor Raymond, tell him to get off his ass and republish it. So yeah, it was gigantic resource. That's how rich it is.
My name is Eastman. I am 67.
Ha, I beat you.
Yeah, going on 68.
69 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the first time I played D&D was in 1974. It was a demo game at La Belle Alliance, which used to be the war game shop. After all, there weren't any role-playing games yet. There was a war game shop that later became the Little Tin Soldier shop.
Yes.
But there was a guy running a demo of this new game called Dungeons and Dragons. His name was Dave something. Arneson, yeah. And it was in Castle Blackmore. In fact, when I got the D20 edition of Castle Blackmore, I found the very trap that got me that first game.
Dave was pretty cutthroat.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Dave was a big proponent of DM versus players.
But it started out as Napoleonics. What do you expect? And basically, I've been pretty much gaming ever since. I've run games that I've run some games that most people have never heard of, and some that are pretty damn well known. But
did you ever play Toon?
Oh yes. You ever played Teenagers from Outer Space?
I've seen it.
And then there was Skull and Crossbones.
What's that?
Then there was Skull and Crossbones.
Yep.
But basically, and I'm the person who actually suggested this panel, and came up with the title because, well, some years ago at CONvergence, we had a panel on early role-playing, and it quickly deteriorated into the 4 Yorkshiremen sketch.
Yep.
You got lucky to have dice!
Yeah, well, and we were lucky to have dice because I remember my initial dice very quickly chipped away into spheres.
Oh, yeah.
They were made of some inferior material, and soon you had a very round D8. So.
Yeah, the TSR, the dice that came with the TSR D&D basic set were
Soap.
soap, yeah.
Basically,
And you got a crayon to color it?
Yep.
I was lucky.
And you had on your die 20, right? You had one set of numbers, 1 to 10. What was one color?
Yep.
And the other 1 to 10s were a second color because they didn't number them to 20 as one.
You were lucky you had dice. So coming into this, 10, I did, again, it is the teenager that he had the soap dice. I was not allowed to borrow the soap dice. So for me, it was a lot of pieces of paper in a hat that I would draw out of. And it was really great when I went to, when school started again, and we had platonic solids as like a math thing. And so it would be like, kidnap the platonic solids and take them out to recess. D&D. But that didn't happen until I was in 5th grade, because I was trying, without much success, to try to get my brother to play with me. But he was 2 years younger and definitely not ready for D&D. So that was Redbox era for me. So
Yeah.
you notice these guys have been playing D&D longer than I've been alive, and I'm not a spring chicken myself. So
one of the things that like I said, I've been playing since '76, and I actually have written proof because in 1979, one of our local papers called Pioneer Press. Remember the Pioneer Press? And you remember the D&D Demon Scare, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
Right?
So
So the Pioneer Press decided that they were going to do what's like a variety article, right, on D&D, right? And so and I still have it. I have a copy of it because I was the DM that they interviewed for that article in the Pioneer Press. And so, the opening lines is right behind you, the door slams, the DM chuckles gleefully, and so forth. So yeah, and did interview a number of other people, but I was the DM that they interviewed for that article. So
that's really cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely came in during like there was Satanic Panic stuff going on when I was just starting, and literally my parish priest, my parents came to him and was like, "Is this okay?" And he's like, as long as he's not having trouble telling fantasy from reality, it's fine. So I was never happier to have one of my faith leaders talk about anything because I did have friends when I was growing up who had their parents throwing away their stuff, burning their stuff, like forbidding them from doing it, grounding them if they got caught. Like it was very it was like having, I don't know, treated worse than porn, and it was very interesting time to be a gamer, especially a very young gamer.
Well, I'll tell you again. I'm sure Bob and I are going to talk a lot about Techumel because we have a lot of stories. But one of the things that was published originally for Techumel, it was published by Adventure Games, and then Techumel picked it up later, is a book called The Book of Enlightenments.
Oh yeah.
And Professor Barker, among other things, he actually was a professor at U in Southeast Asian Studies. He spoke
Everything.
like 40 other languages, and that didn't include the 6 that he wrote himself. The Book of Avid Bindings, if somebody had actually, during the Great Satanic Panic, if somebody had found that book and found it, our industry would not exist. Because
this book treated demonology seriously and in an adult enough manner that there were some demons that were summoned by people pleasuring themselves in the corners. And as part of the ritual, so it was not pulling any punches.
So it was like 90s edgy, except 20 years earlier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because one of the things, again, Professor Barker, in his studies, he had books on Persian demonology and stuff like that, and he used a lot of that genuine research from that era to write this book, and it is, if you read through it, it's actually pretty icky and scary in places.
That was the thing. I went to St. Cloud State, so I never played with Professor Barker. But yeah, that was the thing about, one of the big things about Pebble Throne was, it was not medieval European fantasy. Because he was, after all,
Scholar of Southeast Asian studies.
Southeast Asian studies. This was very Southeast Asian.
South Asian.
It was very South Asian. A lot of stuff that looked like, a lot of the writing looked like Thai.
Well, it was kind of more Indian, Pakistani, and Mesoamerican was the three kind of main things that you drew on.
Because in his world, those were the only cultures that survived the nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
Oh, that's logical. About dice. You know, one thing, some of the early games, especially after TSR realized that those soap dice weren't working, they'd sell the game with chits, which were basically just little squares with numbers on them, and you'd pull them out of the hat. Like,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, those were formal things in some of the early. This is the first box of Dungeons and Dragons, the pre-red box. And but see again, since we had La Belle Alliance, we could get real dice, Zaki dice,
Zawadzki. Yeah.
Zaki game science dice. They were
They were the first real good dice. Yeah.
yeah he basically invented the polygonal dice.
Well, and here's a funny story about.
Wait. I'm in the middle of the story. and the thing is, one thing about his dice is that they were high precision. It means the edges were very thin, and they stayed that way. I still have a couple of Zaki D20s, and they roll as nicely as they ever did. But you had to watch out for the D4. The D4s, this is before they started cutting the tips off. And they were razor sharp. A friend of mine once put a hand down on a Zaki D4 and wound up in the ER.
Oh, yikes.
He needed stitches. I mean, these things really would work as caltrops. And the thing is, they're getting back to, some of the small dice companies starting to get back to that.
How many people have ever bought dice that were like multicolored? You know, right? Here's a story about how multicolored dice came about, and it all comes down to Zawadzki. Zawadzki was incredibly cheap, and so when he did the injection molding, he would not clear out the old color before he started pouring the new color. Right? And so he got these multicolored dice. And at first he was just kind of giving them away because he didn't know. And then he found out that people really liked them, and so he started doing. But anyway, so yeah, Zaki was the one that originally came with the multicolored dice, and it was because he was so cheap that he didn't clear out the molds before he started pouring the next color.
Whatever works.
And don't forget the Zakihedron.
Oh gosh, yes, the Zakihedron. The 100-sided die.
Golf ball.
Yeah, just a sphere with 100 flat surfaces polished onto it, and I think it had some beads in it.
Some BBs in it.
Rolling.
And the whole little 100 polished surfaces were all very small.
Yeah, those would roll for a while.
Yep.
Yeah. Right, friends.
I remember when
It was sort of a bragging rights thing when I was younger, where it was like, I've got a D30.
they still make them.
Oh, I know they do.
Yeah, but I remember when it was first announced, there was an article there was a thing in Space Gamer about it, and it's saying, I presume it fits in a bowling bag. Because one like that would have been really impressive in a game of Call of Cthulhu. Okay, you just saw Cthulhu and roll your sanity loss.
I remember too, in addition to dice, it was hard to get character sheets. I mean, I've got a lot of character sheets that are just on lined notebook paper that I just wrote in all the characteristics.
Yeah, Notepad was the way to go because I didn't have easy access to a copy machine. Like I could get one at like the library, but
We had Mimeos.
Yeah, I remember the videos.
Yeah.
Or Ditto.
Yeah, we didn't have copy machines yet, so it was
Yeah.
basically you wrote it down by hand because you got a couple of sheets with the box, and if you use those up, there you go, you're out.
Hex
5
paper.
by 9 note cards.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, note cards were pretty solid. But I definitely used mostly notebook paper. Is the graph paper was another one that was a little bit hard to source, but X paper was like
X paper was the bomb.
pretty much impossible to get when you were 12.
Yeah.
in the 80s.
It was even harder. They didn't even often have it at La Belle Alliance.
It was a bit of a thing. Well, I think we talked a little bit about how the office supply side of things is.
That's what's most fascinating about it.
It's office. It is a, like part of the suffering of being new to a new hobby.
And decks of cards. Decks of cards.
But let's talk a little bit about like the points of entry. Like I know we've talked a bit about how we've discovered gaming and where we started. How has that changed for you over the years, or have you basically been playing kind of with similar groups for years and been able to manage that way?
Well, I started with my high school crew, and then I met Barker, as I described, through sort of professional connections. And lately, I've actually been involved with Dragons, Dungeons and Drinks, which is a local organization that holds D&D events at local brew pubs. In fact, I'll be running a game for them on the 15th, and maybe gaming as a gamer on the 16th, possibly. So there certainly was nothing like that 50 years ago. It's a lot of fun to go someplace and sit down with a bunch of strangers and just start knocking out an adventure. And then, that's I think one of the many ways you could meet another crew and sort of get involved. My son does all his gaming online, and he does a ton of it. So, yeah.
I kind of introduced how I got into it, but I've been doing it ever since. I don't know. I've never had issues finding groups, I guess. So I've never had to really. Maybe I've been lucky, stuff like that.
You have friends.
I have friends. Yes, I do. and most of them are gamers. My Wednesday group, I don't know, we've been going for 20 years or something like that, I started a Monday group, and my Sunday tech email group's been going for maybe 10 years or something like that, and so, I don't know, just people I know and stuff like that, and I have met new people and stuff like that, but I generally have not had an issue with finding a group or anything like that. And lessonly, never had a problem with somebody who needed to be ejected from the game. Because
I can't say that. I don't think.
I say that.
Yeah, that is fine.
Because I understand it. I am unfortunate in that respect.
Again,
You met all yours in prison, right?
I may be wearing black, but my name is not Cash. No, again, I hung with a lot of gamers over the years. Started out with high school friends, and we kept going for many years. Both the women I married have been gamers. I lost the first one to heart failure, but the second one's sitting right here. And I haven't been gaming as much lately. Things fell apart rather during the plague, as we all recall. But I do run games at conventions, especially Con of the North, where lately I've been running the Monty Python co-curricula medieval reenactment system, a program, a role-playing game. No, it isn't. But it's just. One thing about our group that was rather different. Of course, we started out with D&D because
There was.
that's what there was. Yeah,
It was.
But we never went to AD&D.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The first thing we found, of course, was Traveler.
Oh, yes.
It was the first real alternative to D&D that wasn't as much like D&D. And then we all went to RuneQuest, which is the first of the list of skills games as opposed to the class and level thing. And we found that a lot more sensible. That and it had a combat system that was actually written by someone who had used a sword.
I ended up in Chartmaster.
Oh, I had a roommate, that housemate, I should say, that we did Rollmaster, Chartmaster, and he had a Rollmaster campaign for years and years and years and years and years, and it was really in depth, a world that he created himself that was really, really good. But the thing about, the reason Bob mentioned Chartmaster, Rollmaster is because, you know, I always played a magic person, and the thing about the combat system, especially, you know, we would, this is back in the days when I was fairly young, and we would literally, you know, have an all-night game, right, you know, and a turn of the fighting, right, because a fighter, because like, I use 20% of my attack over here, and 40% of my defense over here, and 20% of my defense over here, and so, you know, I'm a magic user, right, so the fighter takes 15 minutes to do his attack, and I say, I cast my spell, and then I go read my book for 15 minutes.
There's
exactly what I'm talking about.
A really great Shadowrun story that may be apocryphal, that there was a game that someone was running. Shadowrun, if you have a high enough initiative, you get to take additional turns before everyone else goes. Or at least that wasn't at that time. And it was an 11-person combat, and the person who was chomping at the bit at the end of initiative, when his turn finally came up after like 2 or 3 hours of waiting for other people to take multiple turns, he finally just took out a machine gun and gunned down as many people as he could in one turn. Now we'll go faster. So exasperated.
We had a friend who had a father who had an office that had a conference room, and so we would go in there on Friday evening and set up Chartmaster in the conference room, and we would tape all the charts to the walls and windows of the room so that we could run around and go like this to point at everything. And that lasted about a month until people started complaining that the office smelled like a locker room when they came back to work on Monday.
Oh yeah. Well, and, you know, this housemate of mine, you know, he had a long-term campaign, and he developed a storybook of the thing, you know, and it's he had printed T-shirts and everything, you know, and all the characters from literally for this. I mean, it was years and years and years and years this campaign, really in depth, and you know, everything except my character, and I'm like, Bob, where's Hyenis, right? And he said, oh, because I was the most senior character in the campaign at the end of it, right? He said, oh, Hyenis is the one that's the narrating in the story.
And I alone am to tell the tale.
That is an interesting thing. A lot of the games that cropped up as alternates to D&D all started out as alternate combat systems. RuneQuest started out as what were known as the Perrin conventions. Steve Perrin, who came up with them, was an SCA fighter and didn't care much for the very abstract level of D&D sword fighting. You know, in RuneQuest combat, you learn to love your shield. And Rollmaster started out as a set of alternate systems called Arms Law, Claw Law, which was for animals, and Spell Law. And then they basically just, okay, we're gonna put them together and give them a and the critical hit charts.
Oh man.
In Chartmaster.
And there was
were terrifying.
The other was the one that
and hilarious.
The guy Cole put together? Coleslaw?
That's tomorrow night. No, that's Saturday night. Sorry about that. And GURPS started out as Melee and Wizard, which then became a fantasy trip. And then when Steve Jackson couldn't buy the fantasy trip from Metagaming, he filed off the serial numbers and changed the body lines and called it GURPS.
Yep.
Bob was talking about, what religion were you about?
What's that?
What God were you?
Oh, I always ran a Kaiser worshiper. Kaiser was the god of secrets.
Magic. Secrets.
Yeah.
And one of the things that in Professor Barker's campaign that we found, those of us who played with him, was that he had all the gods laid out and stuff like that. But until he had a player character playing a specific deity, a lot of it he didn't do a lot with it. And I was the first person to play a Belcano character in this campaign. And he knows what I'm talking about. Yes. And so it really was, Belcano is the stability god of death, Lord of the Excellent Dead, as opposed to the Lord of the Undead. And so, I was the first person to play a Belcano character, and it wasn't until then that he started laying out really the in-depth of how that particular religion was. And so that's just the way he did things.
And I don't want to turn it into a TechML discussion, but it's certainly fascinating. In order to get it published in 76.5, he had to cast it into Dungeons and Dragons form, and so the philosophy called stability became good, and the philosophy called change became evil. But that's a complete misrepresentation of how he actually handles those philosophies in TechML. In TechML, they are neither good nor evil. One is for stability and the maintenance of the status quo, and the other is for dynamism and change and altering in things. And that's a natural tension. It's a good natural conflict from a storytelling point of view, but it's not good and evil.
It sounds more like Law and
And more Law and Chaos.
A little bit more like that.
More like that.
Closer. No, I didn't say exactly.
For example, let's say your character dies in TechML. You might want to get him resurrected, and you might think, well, let's go to the Temple of Belcano. They're good. They like to help people, and they will bring him back from the dead because he's the god of the dead. But Belcano is the god of the appropriate progress through the cycles of life. Once you are dead, you are dead. So Belcano is not going to be eager to bring you back to life whatsoever. You call him good, but he's going to, you're good and dead. So
the Undertakers of TechML.
Yep.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the way games have changed over the years. Like, I know that when I was younger, there were a lot of games and a lot of supplements were very focused on adversarial GMing in one way or the other. You had Paranoia, which...
That's the computer!
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Serve the computer.
Was the watchword in that, and Grimtooth's Traps.
Oh God, Grimtooth.
Which was
a new edition of that.
Getting those two books early in my diet taught me two things. One, if the GM is trying to kill you, you are just fucked. There's nothing you can do about it. And two, death is a release, not a punishment. It's more fun to, as a GM, make it more interesting and let people do things that are entertaining and let them off the hook when they do it. And make them, they'll feel good about it because they know that you could have destroyed them. But as time has gone on, I've gotten very involved in very collaborative styles of play, where I will in a moment, and then I'll let you go. But I've been a little bit more of a collaborative, where we joke about the rule 0 being never give the GM ideas, and we violate it constantly.
Yeah.
Where you come up with, mention something in a side quip, and the GM is like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. But we do it intentionally, where we lean into genre conventions. We played a Buffy the Vampire Slayer game, and everyone was just steeped in the style of just screwing yourself up, intentionally, backstabbing each other in a way that was fun for the players. The characters obviously weren't on board for that, and it's just been very interesting to see. Then you get the kind of the story games where it has a very specific goal and intended for more short play rather than long form. So, what did you have your experience?
No, I just want to say 3 words.
Yeah.
Tomb of Horror.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I knew that was going to come up. Adversarial GMing.
You mentioned adversarial GMing. 3 words, Tomb of Horrors.
Tomb of Horrors, for those of you who don't know, was an early convention module.
Game artist, yeah.
No, this was Gary.
It was a Gary.
Tomb is Gary.
Yeah,
Tomb is all Gary.
Created the sphere of annihilation, and we never forgave him for it.
And it basically, the question is how far you can get before you get killed. And for most people, it wasn't very far.
And then they, D&D, bless them, have carried, there's a 2nd edition Tomb of Horrors, there's a 4th edition Tomb of Horrors, I believe there's even a 5th edition.
Oh yeah.
So they've carried it forward.
And I think one of the things that has changed, I think we've mentioned it here a little bit, is that when they first came out, it was just dungeon pillaging. And you'd go into the dungeon and you'd get treasure, and then you'd come out to the tavern and you would drink, and then you would go back into the dungeon and get more treasure. But you weren't really any place in particular, and you weren't really doing anything in particular until somebody wrote it for you. And good GMs could do that, but in fact, there wasn't a lot of setting there. Tecumel didn't succeed as a setting because it is so non-Western. A lot of people found it much too foreign to really embrace. And I don't know, you guys could probably tell me, but it was a while till there was a real kind of setting for D&D that you could say, oh yeah, we use this setting, and other people you've never met before say, yeah, we use that setting too. We all gamed in that same place.
I think that really, there was some stuff in Greyhawk and in Blackmoor, which were all, but I think the one that really blew that up was the Forgotten Realms. Which has even been used most recently in the recent D&D movie,
which is quite excellent.
Yes, it is.
But when did that come out? Forgotten Realms.
Forgotten Realms. Yeah.
I have to look it up.
Yeah, but
Fortunately, I have a powerful computer,
right?
which we would have killed for.
To Bob's thing about just dungeon delving, right? Many years ago, many years ago, I had a coworker who said, "Okay, tell me about D&D in 25 words or less." Okay, kill the monsters, roll the dice, kill the monsters, get the loot.
Yep.
Kill monsters, take stuff.
Well, and you started to ask things. You go into a dungeon and you find this room, and you go in the room, there'd be a monster in a treasure chest, and you kill the monster, you take the treasure, and you're like,
what do the goblins eat?
what the hell is he doing down there?
Yeah,
exactly.
How did the dragon fit in the 10 by 10 room?
Yeah, and you start asking those questions. Where do they get all these orcs from? All that. And so setting was calling to players. Setting was like, yearning to be resolved. And it was a weird time to be gaming, because you really did kind of want those answers, and sometimes they weren't present, they weren't forthcoming.
It turns out The Realms was first published in '87.
Yeah.
Greenwood started it back in '67 for storytelling, but
I want to get back to what you asked though about how things have changed, and this is a relatively recent change. And that is the use of VTTs.
Use of what?
Virtual tabletops.
Virtual tabletops.
Oh,
VTTs. I say relatives because Roll20 has been around quite a while now, but still it's relatively.
I know we used to role play on mushes back in the day too.
The groups that I play in fact, because I'm in 4 groups most weeks. Monday night is a complete virtual group. My Wednesday group is, even though we actually meet in person, we're still using Foundry, even though we're all there in person. Every other Friday night group is for my nephews and grandnephews, and they're all in Illinois. And my Tecumel group is again another, we're using a VTT as well. So. That is, of course, a major change to meeting in person and stuff like that. And so again, just want to get back to your question about what has changed, and that is a huge sea change.
Yeah.
Because the VTTs really do, as a GM, they really help you because they do a lot of the crunching for you.
Yeah, we had a panel on exactly this topic, at least in part, like the way that the technology has changed gaming, and including role-playing, tabletop role-playing.
I had a comment about, well, two of the things you brought up. So the idea of the kill monsters, take their stuff. The whole Monty Hall campaign is of that period.
Yeah.
And then you also brought up Traveler, and the key feature there that when I introduced my daughters to it was, this is so cool, my character can die while I'm creating.
Yes,
That's true. That's true. I
it
forgot.
happened to me.
It's great now. It's great now because it's like, oh wow, the older you are, the better of a character you are. So.
And again, getting back to
Yeah.
how things have changed. When those of us who've been since day one, when D&D was first published, right? It was a little box set, and it had 3 pamphlets in it. And these were not rules; these were guidelines.
Suggestions, I've heard it called.
This is how you can go make your world, have fun, right? And that was a long time there, and as Bob said, and then Techimal came along and said, here's a world, here's something that's more fleshed out than three pamphlets. And then AD&D came along, and now there's more hard and fast rules, right? And set monsters and a lot of things like that. And then of course, as and I'm going to just use D&D for now, for just a few minutes. But and then you had the 2nd edition, and then 3rd edition, and God help us, I'm sorry, pardon me, 3.5, and 3.5, I was not a big 3.5 fan, but I had friends who were, and there were literally, you had bookshelves of hardcover 3.5 books. There were, I don't know how many, right? And they were like,
With open gaming license, it was like a free-for-all. It was between 3 and 3.5. Just everyone was publishing things.
Yeah, I mean, and it was just so again, there was that change because that was a big change. Open gaming license. Let's talk about that for a moment, right? Because that was a big, again, another sea change in the industry, right? So when it was TSR at the time, was it Wizards by then?
It was Wizards by then. Wizards created the OGL.
Okay, so they created something called the Open Gaming License, which they said, they realized that they were not going to be able to create enough content to feed the fandom, right? And so they said, well, you guys, we'll give you our blessing. You go out and create modules. You go out and create worlds. You go out, and as long as you credit us,
Follow within these specific guidelines.
Right, right, and so like you say, that was the explosion of it, and also of course Pathfinder then
Built on
split
that.
off, right, off of 3.5, and then Wizards came out with the 4th edition, which was because by that time the video gaming industry had really taken off a lot, and so Wizards wanted to kind of start to ride that bandwagon a little bit, and so their 4th edition was much more.
It was informed by video games.
It is, yes, informed by video games, and I know.
It was a fun beer and pretzels game if all you wanted to do was a tactical strategy board game.
I love 4th edition. I played 4th edition.
Yeah, I played it for 3 years. It was great for that. I couldn't do like the skill challenges though because they were like it wasn't really working.
Yeah, well, the 4th edition was one of those things that people either loved it or hated it.
Yeah, it really was.
I was in the love it camp, but that's and then, but it did get it was. Especially at
D&D minis were like perfect for that.
But you needed the 4th edition. You really had to play with miniatures.
Yeah,
it was not an option. It was really very much a strategy game. If you had to have miniatures on the table, it really could not have been played.
And it helped if you had those little magnetic doodads that would tell you what conditions everyone had.
Yeah, I'm not even, yes.
Yeah. So essential. Oh my gosh, we got so much use out of those. Those are the dungeon tiles.
Yeah, and then again, but they decided to make this simplify everything, and they came out with the 5th edition. And it is much more simpler, and that's when really things like Pathfinder split off because they wanted to retain some of that crunchiness.
Yeah. Yeah, although I'd say that 5th was a real callback to 2nd. In terms, like the spell lists were very, because one of the things that kind of annoyed me about 3rd was that we're in edition warring, I'm sorry. We should tone down that.
So what you're learning from all this is gamers spent a lot of money on new editions of rules.
Well, because you asked the question, how they changed.
Yep.
Well, I'm warning myself off of this. I'm the one that's like, oh yeah, 3.0. This is the thing.
Well, actually, the thing is, I remember people being so upset when 3 and 3.5 came out.
Yeah.
When 3.5 came out, they were particularly upset because, oh my God, it hasn't been 10 years. And I'm thinking, if you played any other game, they fixed things a lot quicker than D&D did. Because D&D was still using their rather busted system all through 1st and 2nd edition with all the negative numbers. Now, that's, again, like I said, we're in a group that never went to a D&D, and I didn't go back to D&D until the 3rd edition because, wait, things go in the proper direction now.
Yes, question?
I just want to ask y'all, kind of going back the other direction, did any of y'all ever, at that time or later in your lives, did any of you ever play any of the games that led up to Dungeons and Dragons? So the reason I ask is I was at DaveCon last year, and I got to play Brownstein with David Wesley, which was incredibly fun. But did any of you ever get to play any of those other kind, like either Blackmore or any of those other war game inspired
You had to know the guy. The closest again, it was that demo game by Dave Arneson.
Same as me, yeah.
Yeah, you had to know the people to do that kind of stuff, and not everyone did.
Yeah.
I mean, I was playing Avalon Hill war games before. That was so I was a war gamer already, but when D&D came out. So, but the other things like, there are a few of them that was.
Well, and you didn't have as many conventions, so you didn't have as many opportunities either. I went to a gaming convention at the St. Paul campus of the U of M, and it was the first time I played Blackmore, actually, yeah. And Dave killed me almost instantly. And I was young. I didn't leave with a very good impression of him because he just killed me. And then I went and I played this game called Tecumseh, and very shortly into the game, the people I was playing against were obviously cheating. And so then they killed me, and I left with a very sour feeling about Tecumseh. So, and that was it for my experience. I mean, there was not another convention to attend for another year. And it wasn't nearly as intense as sort of the experience cycle you get these days.
Well, we could talk a little bit about accessibility, like how easy was it to get, because we're 4 white guys up here, but I know that the hobby has changed a lot, and I'm thrilled about it. We recently was developing a product where it was an adventure, and the writer kind of in her notes was like, I didn't realize until I finished this that all 6 characters, 5 of them are women and 1 of them is non-binary, and I'm like, you know what? This particular adventure was about a bunch of women trying to rescue some teenage girls who got in some kind of trouble. Let's lean into it rather than projecting it, because I cannot tell you how many adventures I've seen over my years that were like 6 guys and 1 female cleric, like over and over and over and over again. And like, how hard does that make it to get into the hobby if you just aren't represented in that?
Very hard. That's one of the things that I mean, so, one thing about TechML, of course, is that Professor Barker, he wrote into the system, and the only thing that's not tolerated is intolerance.
Yeah.
And there were in his world, if you were a woman, you could be a good clan girl, but you could also just go declare yourself independent.
All right, Donnie.
And then you have all the rights and responsibilities of a man, right?
Yeah.
So, and there were whole legions of gay people, and where the various cohorts were like lesbian cohort, the gay cohort, and the bi cohort.
That's a place where he was so far out in front. Yeah.
And this is in the 70s.
Yeah,
right?
he had Lady Dilanala, who is the cohort of Avante, and she is the goddess of women, and she has aspects that include women who love women. And there were, as you say, there were whole military characters that were gay men, and of course nobody's white. Not a single white person in any of those games. I think if a white person showed up, they'd want to bake them. So
my Sunday techno game, I have 2 women in my game. I have two men in my game. One man is a straight, one straight playing a woman, a female character. The other one's a gay man. I have one woman, a straight woman playing a woman character, and I have a gay woman playing a male character. So I mean,
Over that.
on the other hand, the first woman I ever met playing Dungeons and Dragons, I'd been playing for 4 years. 1980 was the first time I met a woman in a Dungeons and Dragons game, and we went on one date. And then we went on our second date 38 years later, and now we're still together.
I love a happy ending.
Yeah, no, my gaming group, we eventually started adding women.
Yep.
We were playing RuneQuest, which didn't have any of the silly rules about, women can't be strong or anything that D&D tended to have at the time because of gagas. And the thing is, they would come up with new ideas that we hadn't thought of. Like, okay, fine, now that we know whether we want to go to town and get laid. They actually came up with an amulet of pregnancy prevention.
Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, you're right. It was a very straight white, initially,
Yeah.
and there's no doubt about it. Which is, I think, part of the reason why I, like techno so much, because it wasn't, at least the world wasn't that way.
Yeah, I kind of lucked out when I was in college because I kind of went. There was no gaming club or anything this was a small little school, 1,000 students, and so I basically went door to door and just everyone I met, I would just try to get roped into this D&D game, and I ended up with an almost 50-50 split of women and men, which sometimes made for some drama because dating stuff happened between some of them, but by and large it was really great and it had some really refreshing and different views on things. I remember when the Goblin Kingdom, instead of being they organizing an army to defeat them, they end up organizing a trade deal, between that and the town nearby. And that was definitely my female gamers thing, rather than what the guys were doing. The guys were the ones that picked a fight with too many gnolls and almost all died. So good times.
Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say we're getting kind of close to the end. Do we want to take some questions before we wrap?
Yeah, actually, good question. So, especially for you guys who've been playing longer, so obviously you brought up the idea that older versions of D&D, and based on what I've done some research on it, was more focused on dungeon delving and killing monsters, that kind of stuff. When was the transition that you guys realized where it became more of a story-focused game? I feel like newer versions of D&D really emphasizes that. So I'm curious for you guys, especially where the older versions were so focused on dungeons, when was it for you guys where you also started noticing it shifting, or when did you guys start noticing kind of that mixture of it being a dungeon delving, but also kind of some storytelling world like that stuff? Or was that always something you guys had?
Well, it depends on the system we're running. I mean, I had a friend who ran a system, a game called Chill for a long time. There was a horror role-playing game, and that was much more, storytelling. But as far as D&D itself, what did you say? What's second edition about?
Second ed, I played second ed a lot.
I think that really second edition is what
and there was enough variety in the spell list where you could use a lot of stuff very in very utilitarian ways. And there was just beginning to be the sort of homebrew internet stuff coming out where it was like some of it more serious, some of it silly, like what the heck was it? The Book of Carnal, the Book of Unlocked Carnal Knowledge, or whatever it was, like the birth control. Like, oh, that makes sense that this would be a thing. But like, to a certain extent, it was also like my group, and the game allowed it, and we just ran with it. Like, we had combats and we had some dungeon crawls, but like, it really became so story focused. And then like, you came into the 90s with like World of Darkness stuff, and it was a completely different hobby. It was like that was what you were playing, were these deep understanding of being this monster and the mechanics designed to make you feel like the monster. That's I feel like that was kind of the transition for me, college and like early 20s for me. So like 90s, early 90s.
What I've kind of noticed is like the dice in the early Dungeons and Dragons games, all my edges have gotten worn off over time. And I've simply evolved into my gaming style being much more collaborative, much less rules focused. When we gamed with Professor Barker, you basically tossed percentile dice, and if they were low, you did well, and if they were high, you did badly, and that was it. It was like, okay, I'm gonna try to do an arrow flip off of this thing and land on this, by this guy and stab it. 99, well, that hurt. Yeah, dice as creative prompt, yeah, but that's a style thing. When did that become more prevalent? I mean, I think it has to do with how each group and person evolves as a gamer.
Yeah, again, since our group, we got out of D&D early. We were doing, we actually, in our RuneQuest campaign, we had our own duchy.
Yeah.
Duluth. and the Traveler game was heavy on, we were skip tracers.
Oh, yeah.
For a mega corporation. Surrender in the name of magnetodynamics.
Well, like what Bob said, when I played Tecmo for a very long time, it was you roll the dice and the DM rolls the dice. And if the DM rolls higher, his version of reality happens. And if you roll higher, your version of reality happens.
It's like playing pretend with grown-ups. It's great. This is why I'm in the hobby.
Exactly.
Yeah, question.
So first off, thanks for being here. Second, what is something that you feel like the current generation of players could learn from your generation of players, and what do you think you could learn from his current generation?
Well, certainly representation and respect, because that is a whole component of sociology in general that wasn't present when we were younger, and it's high time. So that's, for someone our age, that's a great thing.
It really, when I started running for my nephews and grandnephews 5 or 6 years ago, a friend of mine said, wouldn't it have been great, when we were starting out, if we had somebody who'd been playing for 40 years to mentor us as well, right? Because of course we didn't, because it didn't exist back then. But so kind of an answer to your question, for those of us who have been in the hobby a long time, if you have the opportunity to mentor a young group, I would strongly encourage it, because again, I just happened to, my nephew and grandnephew just decided they were starting to play. I was there a Christmas party, and they said they would play at the library, and I thought to myself, well, I could use, this is pre-COVID, but I said I could still use an ETT, even though they're in Illinois and I'm in Minnesota, right? To teach D&D, so why not?
And something to mention to young people that they might find interesting is to consider that the population of the planet has doubled since D&D came out. There are twice as many people on the planet. And that means that there's more opportunities for gaming groups and representation in different kinds of people. But it also means that when you look back at the lack of representation back then, there were literally fewer people. And then so you didn't have as much of an opportunity to have diversity because you just had fewer people.
I will say that, with almost 40 years of gaming, you develop all sorts of weird tricks and tactics and stuff. And I have found as a developer, as a game designer, I'm working on a game storyteller's guide for one of the games that I write for, and I just basically was like, let's pour as much of what I know about how to run a game as I can into this one book, and just really get into 101 level details of some stuff, like pacing, how to do cross-cutting, how to manage how often you meet, whether you have food together, when do you cancel, when do you deal with all the little nitty gritty things that you don't think about too much when you're 14 or 18 and just getting into the hobby, but it's kind of a big part of what it is to actually be able to play this game continuously, is navigating those and knowing little ways of making your job a little easier as a GM, making it a little more fun for the players.
Organizational skills.
Organization skills.
Yeah.
I'll let you.
It's just, because we got to clear out, because there is another panel
I'm sure there is.
in this room after us. And
But a half an hour after us, so.
yeah, but
And come to the panel on Saturday night.
yeah. But basically, just
Do you guys have anything to pitch, anything to say goodbye with?
again, like Bob said, the funnel. Tomorrow night.
I'll be in Would I Lie to You with Chris Cluey and some other vilifiers, which is a British panel game tomorrow night at 7. So come and join us because it should be a ton of fun.
And I have a couple books out for Deviant the Renegades, which is a game about escaped science experiments, getting revenge on the people who changed them. I've got one called Shallow Graves, which is the player's guide. I've got another one called Black Vans that I hope will be out late this year, early next year, which is the storyteller's guide. I'm findable on Patreon, I'm findable on Blue Sky, although as a caveat, there is another Eric Zawadzki out there who's a comic book artist. He's great, but he and I are not the same person. So.
As long as we're pitching a couple of quick things, I'm running a convention in October called Galaxicon. It was a national convention that travels around. We're bringing it back to Minneapolis for the 5th time. We have some great guests. One, I'm not running Galaxicon in between those things. I'm running a small convention called CONfabulous, which is a GLBTQ plus gaming convention, also in October. You can find us either under CONfabulous or Galaxicon, and take a look. We're having a panel on Sunday where I will be talking more in detail about Galaxicon.
All right, thank you very much.
thank you all for coming.